All right, welcome everybody to episode 1 of Surprised by Art, where we take a topic that you, the audience, voted on, and each host selects a work of art to surprise each other and you with. My name is Kirk Barbera, and I'm going to select a poem, and
This is Luke Travers, and I'm going to select a painting and surprise you, Kirk, with
yeah,
that
and he's
painting.
he's going to surprise me and you based on this topic. Now, before we go into the topic, I just wanted to say, one, I'm really excited about this new show. I think it's going to be a lot of fun because one, we both have, a general appreciation and understanding of art, but we kind of have our favorite. I think it's our favored forms and mediums. I love poetry and literature. So do you. But you also, I think you probably have a deeper, is this true? I don't want to put thoughts into your head, but like a deeper love or appreciation of painting and sculptures.
I think so. I've worked with poetry for most of my life as a literature teacher, but I have done most of my creative work in museums and art museums, looking at art and discovering art. And I think that's where I feel a little bit more comfortable. And so, Kirk, you're going to surprise me with the poems, but I'm hoping to tap into your understanding and expertise to learn more about them, to experience them more fully too.
Yeah, and vice versa. And the other thing is that the poem that we chose it. So I chose this poem for a reason. Right. And and you chose your painting for a reason. So even if you know the painting and I know the poem, or you know even if you know the poem, I know the painting a little bit, you're going to have more than likely a much richer understanding of it because you've spent time with that work of art. And that's what we're going to kind of bring to the show, is that I'm going to bring a first person's perspective or a newer perspective to the painting. And you're going to do the same with the poem. But you're going to bring the experienced understanding of that painting, and I'm going to bring a more experienced understanding of this poem.
In addition to that, Kirk, I'm excited also about the combination of the two and seeing how they speak to each other, how they're different, how they're similar, what kind of insights do they have when we compare them side by side.
Especially in relation to the topic. And this is, I'm going to segue into what the topic is. We're going to reveal the topic, and then we're going to do the surprise with the painting. But that's kind of the whole crux of the show, is that this topic that we chose, or that you voted on, is going to determine what we are seeing in these paintings. And maybe we're wrong, maybe we're right, maybe it's only one part of the artwork, but this is the idea. And one of the things that I personally, and I think we're both passionate about, is experiencing artwork and adding it to our experience of life. And these topics, which I think are sometimes experiences that we all have, are relatable and can expand our ocean of experience. And by the way, this is a hint, this is a teaser to my poem, The Sea of...
Okay. Let's dive into the ocean. What's the topic, Kirk?
Okay, so the topic that you guys voted on, that was neck and neck tied, by the way. So thank you for everybody who voted. It was neck and neck tied, and it was man's loss of faith.
Oh my goodness!
So a very light topic.
All right. Yeah. But this was funny. Is in comparison to this other topic, which was, what was the other topic again?
The other one that was neck and neck with it was leisure time.
Leisure time, and you go from leisure time to man's loss of faith. Yeah. What a transition! Okay.
Yeah. So it's a big scope here. So why don't we hop into the painting itself? So now we're going to talk about this painting. By the way, we're going to have some hints or some showing you where to go to see this painting, because you're listening to this, and that, by the way, we did that on purpose. Even though we're doing a visual medium like this painting, we chose to do an audio version of this, and to make it audio, because part of the enjoyment that a lot of people, I think, don't do with painting is experiencing the rich language that can come out of yourself when you are, approaching art, whether or not you're educated in art, by the way. I just want to put that out there. The whole point is that I call myself a trucker who reads poems. Like, I'm a guy with a bear rug. Like you
Okay,
don't
good.
need to be, some sophisticated person out there with like degrees.
That's a great term, sophistafunk.
Yeah, that's
All
like,
right.
I think it's from
Okay.
a rapper or
Well,
something.
Kirk, what I'd like to have you do is like to have you see it very quickly and give it just a first title, a quick title to the artwork, and then I'm going to ask you to read it more deeply and to tell us what you're seeing in this artwork.
Great.
All right. Okay, so are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
Okay. So here is this first image.
Well, can you zoom in a little bit?
No, that's it. That's all
Oh,
you get, Kirk.
I,
What's your
I
first
didn't.
title?
Okay, I'm sorry. You're gonna have to show it one more time because I literally didn't see it. I was trying. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Title. Ooh. Title.
What did you see?
Despondency, I guess is the title.
Okay.
So that was
All
the
right.
first thing that came, because I had never seen that painting in my life. And there seemed to be a lot going on. So my mind was kind of like, even though it was a very simple poem, it looked like there was just a man at a white tablecloth. He's looking down at something on the floor. And he seemed, I couldn't tell, but I got the feeling of despondency or something. That was the word that came to mind.
All
Away,
right. Now
instantly.
I'm showing it to you again. And so take us through it. You've seen this man at this white
Okay.
tablecloth. What else are you seeing?
So now, okay, there's two people. See, I didn't even notice that guy. So there's actually two people here. And it looks like there is a book on the floor. Is there any way you can move the image up a little bit so I can make sure I'm seeing the bottom of the image?
Yeah, you're seeing the bottom of the image.
So yeah, there's a book on the floor. The book is a little bit cut off by the bottom of the image, by the way.
Oh, I'm on full screen. So
okay, that's fine.
yeah.
So then there is a soldier, and I'm not super familiar with uniforms. My mind always goes to like either he's British or French. So I'm assuming French. Something about the gentleman.
You are a history connoisseur.
Something about
military
the
history connoisseur.
I try. And it does help to have a little bit of that, but we've all seen movies with French soldiers from the Revolution. And yes, thank you. There he is a little bit closer. I see the musket, so I know something, it's about the 1800s, I assume, maybe 1700s. And then that hat, and the other gentleman looks very French for some reason. Maybe it's the long, he's got these long swooping sleeves. And for some reason, I just think of him as French. Also, he's very contemplative, which I also, and expressive, which I associate with Frenchmen a little bit. So I get that he has his hands. One hand is seemed to be balled in a fist. The one that's on the chair, he's sitting on a chair. The other one is on a table that's not. It's kind of balled in a fist, but not like tight. So it's not like he's balling in his fist like he's gonna punch something or he's angry. It's just kind of on the table in a fist-like manner. There's also something else on the ground in the bottom left corner, but I'm not quite certain what that is. A bowl.
Yeah, neither am I. Maybe a bowl.
It's a bowl of something possibly.
What kind of place is he in?
That was the other. Yeah, the next thing I was thinking about was, so it's interesting that he has like candles. So it feels like he, in a white tablecloth. It feels like he's supposed to be eating this elegant meal, but it looks like a dungeon, or at least the bottom bunker of something. He's in a castle. He doesn't feel like a prisoner though, to me at the moment, but he may be a very important prisoner, like a political prisoner, because he has his own. So either he has a bodyguard or he has a jailer that's just for him, which now I do know a little bit about the dungeons and the prisons of this time, and that's not. No. Oh, okay. Never mind. Thank you. So that just solved my.
What did you see?
You just answered solved my problem here. So he has a shackles on. He has manacles on his feet. So I did not realize that at all. So he's definitely a prisoner, but he can't be the prisoners of, like the masses, right? Like the Jean Valjean, who's just thrown in to this mass prison with lots of people. It's these horrible conditions. He seems like a very special prisoner. it makes me think of the Man in the Iron Mask, right? Like he's there's something special about him. He has his own guard,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's just standing there,
Mm-hmm.
and his guard is, casual. By the way, he's not on alert for whatever
He could
reason.
be checking his Twitter feed right
Yeah, he
now.
could be checking his Twitter feed, and maybe he realizes this gentleman isn't going to do anything. He's not a violent person. He's friendly with him, or he is just getting bored of this duty.
Now, you've been talking a little. The expression you described on this man's face was like contemplative. You want to add to that? Like, what kind of thoughts are going through his mind?
Get me out of here.
Like, I can't wait to get out of here and go see my wife and children.
I feel like injustice
Why?
because of the book on the floor.
Okay.
Like it makes me think of a man who is very intellectual. Oh, there's the book a little bit closer. Yeah.
Okay, can you tell us more about this book? Because I'm imagining a book like, nice covers, pages, tucked inside of a bookshelf. What's going on with this book?
Yeah. So the book looks like it has nothing on the cover. It's not like a picture book. It's tattered. It seems pretty beat up. And it seems like it's crumpled in a lot of places. Almost possibly.
Why is it crumpled in a lot of places?
Yeah, almost like he was tearing at it or something. Right.
And what has he done with it just now? Has he placed it on the ground?
And he threw it in a heap on the ground. So it's open like it's open like it's in the middle. So it's not flat on the ground with the covers closed. The book is opened in the middle, right? Like it's been thrown on the ground. Like he was reading it and he just tossed it, right? That was my assumption with it, is that he was reading and then he just kind of
I like the way you're rewinding a little bit on that scene. Yeah, I can totally see that, Kirk. He was reading there, and I'm looking at this. It's thoughtful, but there's anger. I see what I call like the V of anger in his brows as they're furrowed, and he's staring downwards. And you describe those finches as kind of clenched. I mean, he's got them pretty clenched. I'm thinking he's got them pretty clenched, and he's looking down into space. And like, I might be. Well, let me ask you, Kirk, if you had to put some words in his mouth right now as a prisoner, right here, maybe a special prisoner, but having just thrown down this book, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about what that book is in a moment. But what could he be saying? What could he be thinking if you were to give words to his mind?
I mean, the unfairness of this event, the injustice.
So that's the kind of thing he'd be saying, but write him some dialogue.
Putting me on the spot, and I'm supposed to be a writer.
I mean, curse if you have to.
What's that?
Curse if you have to.
Yeah, I know. Okay. So like, thank you. You're giving me a hint in the right direction. So he's furious and he's like, get me the fuck out of here. That kind of thing. Like, get me out of here. This is horrible and unjust. I can't believe this has happened to me. And maybe even like, what is going on with the world that allows this shit to happen to good people, right? I've done nothing wrong. I'm innocent. Right?
All right.
Like that kind of fury that would accompany a man who did nothing wrong.
Maybe. But as you're describing that, what I'm imagining him turn to the guard, like, get me the hell out of here. And but he's not. He's turned away from him. And this is something that's a good point. After the raging against somebody, and in fact, it's after the raging. He already threw this book down. And so there's a moment of the post-rage and the boiling anger, seething anger that comes after it, and maybe the thoughts after this. Now, what do you think? What kind of book is this? Is this a comic book? Is this a how-to manual on how to get out of prisons? What kind of book?
I don't know, Rousseau. It's like a philosophy book. It's like or could it be poetry? I don't know if it's poetry.
I mean, I see.
I don't really see much.
Just no blank cover, right? Just brown cover.
Yeah.
And first thought is like a Bible.
Okay.
Right? Possibly. And then I don't know if you're seeing this, but does it look like there's some little straps to it?
Okay, yeah, now I see that. It looks like, so could it be a journal?
I'm wondering that too. Like a journal that he's kept while he's been in prison, maybe recording his thoughts, maybe all the plans that he has for what he's going to do when he gets out. So why is he especially angry right now that led him to throw this only book in this room down? And
I wonder if he was requesting something from the guard and the guard refused him. Well, maybe he wanted to send a letter.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know if how they would
So
do
there's
that.
some big disappointment that he suffered, right? That's where you're getting at. That this is a pivotal moment of.
So I don't know enough historically. I mean, I feel like I'm probably wrong on the letter thing, because I feel like the letter would be a parchment, like by itself. I don't know if it'd be a notebook like I might have, where they would have perforations that I would tear out and send the letter, right? Unless I was going to write a book for somebody and send it over to them like that. Man, that's a really good question. I wish I could put my face right next to the book to really investigate it.
Okay, yeah.
In like a gallery. That's one advantage to going to a museum, is you could put your face as close as the people let them.
Can. But here, I would like to direct your attention to something, if I may, Kirk.
Yes.
You already pointed this out. That table that he's got.
Yeah.
How many tablecloths do you see?
Yes, there's 2. It looks like there's 2, or at least it's double colored. Like it's white on the top, and then there's like but it's probably colored? 2.
It's probably 2. Why is there a white tablecloth and then candles and then a plate on the floor, maybe that he knocked down as well?
Yeah.
Why would a prisoner have a fancy tablecloth with candlelit dinner ready to go?
So someone met him. Someone came to visit him. Someone important.
Maybe.
What's on the floor? I can't see at all.
There's a plate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so people listening, there is something on the floor by the table. And I can't. Yeah. So it might be a plate, you're saying. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're making some interesting points. And especially since there's this bowl on the ground.
I'm going to lead you with another question here.
Okay.
When would a prisoner get to have some fine dining?
Oh my gosh. So I was just thinking now, I think it almost spoiled it, because now I know the topic that we're covering today. And so now I'm starting to suspect this is his last meal. And he's a prisoner. Now I'm getting kind of sad. And he's a prisoner who's, about to be going to the gallows tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe even momentarily. That guard is there, isn't he?
Yeah, so these are his last moments, and he's furious at the sentence, obviously. It's making me kind of sad, actually. So maybe that is a Bible on the floor, and he's like, to hell with the Bible. To hell with all this. It might be
a Bible. It might be a journal.
Yeah, like what's the use of this journal? Right, like he tore it out. Like what's the use of writing? What's the use of...
What's the use of everything that I've held on to in my life, of everything that I've fought for that got me in here, all of my family, my goals, the next day? It's no use.
Yeah. Whew. I'm feeling like this is going to be a really important political figure. Get this guy. Is this during the Reign of Terror? Can you tell me that?
All right, a little bit of background here. Yeah, so this is a Hungarian prisoner. And I don't know much about the background here, but the basic idea is you've got Austria and Hungary, who are not on great terms, and they eventually become the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Yeah.
But he's a Hungarian prisoner who would not join the Austrian army, the Austrian Emperor's army, and escaped, and just some random individual.
Okay.
So not a significant person, just a random individual who would not want to be drafted in another country's army and fight for another emperor. And so this is his last meal before he's going to be executed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it took I would have to say, I know this is kind of off topic, but because this brought up a lot of emotions when the revelation just hit me. And I just want to say, like, that is like, I can't even put words to it, because it really just threw me off, the revelation right there when I made my mind all of a sudden was like, oh, this is about man's loss of faith, and then the last meal.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's like I feel so sad for people who don't take the time to assess great art on a regular basis, because that feeling was worth, the week of waiting, like so much. And it's just like such a incredibly difficult thing to communicate, the power of living in the moment with that gentleman that I just had, that I hope more people will do because of the show. And I just wanted to say that as a complete side note, because that was like so powerful. I'm going to definitely look at that painting personally a lot on my own, because you could see he's righteously angry. His fists are, I figured they were curled, but one of them seems not as bald as the other one. And then, examining the two tablecloths and like at first it looks like maybe he was, I thought he was a political prisoner, and then maybe he was able to have a conjugal visit or something, and he's not able to. That was one thought that went through my mind. But then, when you put it all into context, all the visual images and the darkness that's also happening, where you can actually, I didn't mention this, but you could see these gates I think it's a gate or some kind of post in the back that's darkened.
Mm-hmm.
And that tone is not on accident. And I actually love that it's just a person. He's not a big political figure, but the artist is really taking him seriously. Like the painter was really like, he is an important person because he's a human, right? Like he's not a big historical figure, but he's a human who, because of his decisions in life, is going to go to the gallows for an unjust reason, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
what you have here, I'm really glad you had that experience, Kirk. And what I think is particularly sad, that word that you're using, devastating for me, is this is not somebody who is exhibiting primarily anger at his state. It's an angry resignation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kind of fuck it attitude. He threw down what his life meant onto the ground and is turned away. It's bitter. Okay, you want the title and the artist?
Well, 1 second, which I think is why, because I want to. Well, okay, go ahead, because I do want to relate it to the topic before we move on to the poem. So I want to have a little discussion about its relation to the topic. So yeah, what's the painting author?
So the artist is Hungarian. His name is Mihály Munkacsy. Not sure about the pronunciation. Mihály Munkacsy. Mihály Munkacsy. And there are various titles floating around. I think the one that you'll find at the Frye Museum of Art in Seattle is The Last Day of a Condemned Man. The Last Day of a Condemned Man. And it is in Seattle at the Frye Museum of Art. And this is from 1870.
And this is a good reason why Surprised by Art is so important. Don't read that title, because you'll miss, I think, the revelation that I would have missed. If I would have known that at the beginning, I think it would have ruined it, because I would have looked for every piece of evidence for why this was that title, Last Day of a Condemned Man, versus coming to it completely naked and just experiencing the moment and being completely wrong in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then realizing, oh my gosh, this is the last.
So, Kirk, just one meta comment here on the idea of being completely wrong as you're going through. What I see those when wrong theories that you have are like plot twists in reading a novel.
Nice.
So when you read an Agatha Christie novel and you're wondering, oh, is it this person who committed it? Oh, no, it's not that person. It's this one. Whereas the author would lead you into certain directions by providing red herrings, you're kind of the author of your own twists as you read an artwork.
Yeah.
So don't see your hypotheses about what is going on as wrong. See them as little plot twists as you go on the journey of reading this artwork.
That's a wonderful way of thinking about it. Okay, so the topic in this painting. So the topic is man's loss of faith. And I definitely see it. And I'm I'm so interested when I share my poem that is going to be wildly different. But this is like such an interesting, it's definitely powerful he's a condemned man. He's flung down this, even if you don't know what the book is, he's flung down knowledge and life and everything. he flung down that food on the floor, right? Like from a rising up from just the visuals into a little bit more abstract. He's thrown away any earthly things that he has, and and possible and spiritual, like knowledge, and it represents that. And you could say that he's definitely doesn't care anymore, like you said. And there's this fuck it attitude. This I don't, which by the way, I mean, I think it's one of the reasons why it so resonates with me in this COVID-19 situation that we're in terms of like, obviously it's not on the same level as being actually condemned to death, but just the feeling of resignation that there's just nothing you could do. Right. And that is how I felt, that this has gone on for 3 months now, and you barely left my house, and just a feeling of resignation. And it's like, God, I don't, and at first I was like super angry and I was going to do something. And then I tried to do something. It's like, that's not going to do anything. And then you're just kind of like, what are you going to do? There's a guard there. I'm in shackle. I mean, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, that's a great personal connection there, Kirk. And I can also imagine maybe with protests going on that a lot of people might be feeling the feeling of I've come to the end of my rope with things. I'm so frustrated with lack of change and things that are happening, and say fuck it.
Yeah, I think that's gonna have to be the title of our podcast episode.
I wasn't expecting us to get into a rated R. I think we're allowed to say fuck once and a PG-13.
Yeah,
but
so we'll have to tell parents that there's a couple F words.
All right.
Well,
I'm excited to see your poem now, Kirk, and to have you take me through it.
Okay, so yeah, let's go into this poem, man. So I'm gonna just kind of hop into it and read it. This is a poem that is, I don't want to set it up too much, but because it's a little bit different. I'm not going to give you the definitions, but I'll tell you that there are going to be a couple words, vocab words, that I'm going to give you afterwards. And I just want to encourage the audience that's listening to just try to listen to the sounds as much as possible, and try to get what you can out of it.
Well, with your voice, Kirk, we'll enjoy listening to those sounds.
But I'm just going to be honest. It took me a long time to get this, so do not get frustrated, please. Like we're gonna work through this. So
I want to give a heads up. So Kirk, you sent me this poem like after I'd picked out the painting, so I could kind of get a glimpse at it. And I've read through it once, and that's it. I think I've got a vague understanding of what's going on, so I'm very interested to see how you flesh out my understanding of it. And Kirk, would you mind sharing your screen with me of the poem so that I can see what it is that you're referring to when you're speaking about it?
Okay, so I'm going to pop up if you're able to read this poem along with me. I would encourage it, or just relax and listen. The poem is called Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold. The sea is calm tonight. The tide is full. The moon lies fair upon the straits. On the French coast, the light gleams and is gone. The cliffs of England stand, glimmering and vast, out in the tranquil bay. Come to the window, sweet is the night air. Only, from the long line of spray, where the sea meets the moon-blanched land, listen, you hear the grating roar of pebbles, which the waves draw back and fling, at their return, up the high strand. Begin, and cease, and then again begin, with tremulous cadence slow, and bring the eternal note of sadness in. Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean, and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. We find also in the sound, a thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. The sea of faith was once, too, at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. But now I only hear its melancholy, long withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind. Down the vast edges, drear and naked shingles of the world. Ah, love, let us be true to one another, for the world, which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. And we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night.
Aye.
I made a few
All right.
errors. I apologize for stumbling, but I was reading it live. That's kind of the danger.
Man.
That sound okay?
So, yeah, it sounded great. Can I tell you just a brief bit of what I heard?
Please.
So there's this guy who's there with his beloved, and they've got they're on the shore of Dover, and it's nighttime, and they are listening to the ocean waves, and he's interpreting the meaning of these ocean waves and the sound of these ocean waves, and what whether at some point the ocean had a positive connotation, but now there is nothing positive about that sound. It's filled with sadness. It doesn't bring any joy or peace or anything like that. And there is a little bit of a plot twist in the last line. Swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. So there was a brief mention of France before, and Dover is across from France. Well, that's my European geography there, everybody. So I'm imagining like World War I, World War II, and they are all that the ocean can bring them is a sound of pain, especially because you have this horrific war going on.
So, you actually have the best summary I've heard from an intro like that. It was way better than anything I came up with originally, because you're really quite there. I would just have one historical thing that might be important, is that this was written in the 50s. So
1850s.
Yeah, so it's way before any world wars. But I think the feeling is still there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that the feeling you're getting, that was actually the feeling I had. We see these movies like Dunkirk, and we think of, that era, that's World War II, but going across that English Channel. And you're right. By the way, I do recommend people, if you get an opportunity, go to Google Maps and Google Dover, England. And you can actually go on Google Maps and you could see how close the French coast is to it. You could also Google this. So I've never been, so I had to Google everything, and that's why I'm recommending it. But it really helps to see that on a clear day, if you stand on the beach of Dover, a town in England, you can see the French coastline 20 miles away. So you can actually see that, here's this English Channel, and there's France over there, this whole other world. So your summary, I think, is very astute. In terms of he's with some, I visualize him with someone as well. And then he kind of goes into this kind of contemplative feeling. And, go ahead.
Kirk, may I jump in? Because I've got a couple of questions.
Please.
Thank you for complimenting my summary. I'm an expert poetry summarizer, as you may have heard.
Of course.
But a couple of questions I have that are confusing to me. So that's fascinating. That's really fascinating. It's the 1850s? Whoa. I thought for sure World War I.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And so first question I have is, we have this passage about Sophocles. Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean, the same sound of the water coming in, the pebbles grinding. And it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. So I'm guessing here that there is a parallel being drawn between the narrator and Sophocles. So he's saying, yeah, Sophocles heard it too. There's misery in these waves, just like I'm hearing it. It's always been there. Is that kind of what's going on there, Kirk?
Yeah. And let me read you a quote from Antigone, actually. So Antigone was written by Oedipus.
By Oedipus or Sophocles?
I'm sorry, thank you. Sophocles, who wrote also Oedipus and Antigone, which are probably the most famous of all.
Oedipus gave birth to Antigone, if I remember correctly. So maybe a little bit written there, yeah.
Yeah. And
no, what am I talking about? No, Oedipus didn't give birth. No, he wasn't even the father. Was he? Yeah, he was the father.
He's Antigone's father, right? Antigone is the play is a great play. I don't want to get into the details, but it's tragedy. So this is like the birth of tragedy in drama, is what Matthew Arnold is kind of hearkening back to, in a sense, right? And the quote from Oedipus from Antigone, the play, is, "Happy are they whose life has not tasked evils, but for those whose house has been shaken by God, no mass of ruin fails to creep upon their families. It is like the sea swell, when an undersea darkness drives upon it with gusts of Thracian winds. It rolls the dark sand from the depths, and the beach is beaten by the waves and wind groan and roar."
Oh man, that sounds like a direct allusion to that specific quote.
I don't know if it is, but it definitely feels like it. I found this from my reading about. I've sat with this poem for years, by the way. I did a show on this years ago that was literally 2.5 hours long of me talking about this poem. It is a deep poem for sure. And I think you're touching on the reasons why, like you felt all this stuff about World War I. And I think that's, relevant here. So one way to approach, it's going to be hard to kind of do the whole thing. I have a kind of a summary, and I think yours.
I got another question. Question. May I ask? Yeah.
You can ask as many questions as you want, brother.
No. So the next question has to do with the next stanza, because it looks like there's a little bit of joy here about what the ocean can represent. So
in stanza 2?
Says, stanza 3. Okay. Yeah. The sea of faith was once too at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. But now I only hear its melancholy long withdrawing roar.
Okay.
So at once it was the folds of a bright girdle furled. So what does that mean? That sounds pretty upbeat. I guess that's the point here, that at once for him he felt happy and now he doesn't anymore.
Okay, so let me. Can I set something up with stanza 1 a little bit and what I think is happening with?
Is it going to help answer my question about the third stanza?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because what is happening, I think in stanza 3 and in stanza, really in everything that happens afterwards, is a conclusion from stanza 1. And I won't sum up all of stanza 1, or I won't go through everything in stanza 1. I'll just say this, that if you read stanza 1 carefully, you start with these visuals, the calm sea, tide full. These are actual things that he's seeing. Like, you can imagine him at a window.
Sure. Yeah, he's there. And I was seeing them myself. Yeah, it's pretty calm, and the moonlight and all that. Yeah. And then you hear the roar of the wave. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then you hear toward the end, he says, listen, you hear the grating roar. So it goes from this calm to this grating roar. So he starts to notice the kind of something a little bit more melancholy going on, and something more rough and tumble. And then, at the end, begin and cease. And then he starts to get into this contemplative nature, right? At the very end of that first stanza. And it ends with tremulous, that's shaking. Tremulous is like shaking cadence. Slow. That doesn't exactly resonate with the first beginning of that stanza, at least not from a first look. From the beginning of the sea is calm. And it goes into, so basically these visual images of the calm sea, of the cliffs of England, of the coast of France, which gleams, so he could see like a city that then the lights fade away, right? That kind of goes into what he calls the eternal note of sadness. And that, so it's almost like if you've ever been on a beach, which I know you have and I have, especially if you go by yourself and you're just quiet for a while, I think human beings have a tendency to go into this, like this contemplative, pensive, thoughtful thing.
Oh, and especially with the mood that's being set up here, it's
and then
moonlight, quiet. I mean, I've got the Moonlight Sonata playing in the background for me right now,
wonderful.
as I'm listening to that tremulous cadence of, and I know exactly what's being talked about with the pebbles which the wave draw back and fling. That the grinding movement. It's not just the ocean waves on a sandy shore, but on that pebble shore, there's a little bit different sound to it.
Yep.
So you got this eternal note of sadness in this. So how does that relate to the Sea of Faith?
So he's now in this contemplative thing that is sadness, and he goes into Sophocles, right?
Yeah.
Who's talking about human misery as this thing that, always occurs. It's inevitable. It's fate, right? And he goes into this whole thing about the Sea of Faith. Now, what is the Sea of Faith? What in history? This is actually 1867. What in history would you think of as faith? Like if you think of the word faith itself,
God.
And can you think of a particular association with which God? Not the
walking on water.
Walking on water, like Christianity.
Yeah. Or you're thinking Poseidon, Neptune.
Well, so he covers that in the pagans in a sense, right? Like, I think the idea of the pagans is that they had
I don't know what the pagans are.
Sophocles. The ancient Greeks were pagans.
Okay.
To the Christians.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so the Sea of Faith was once too at the full. Mankind was full of faith, full of wonder at the world, at all the things around it, at the reverie, the spiritual there that you have, and round Earth's shore, right? Like when they were drawing maps.
Yeah, the maps of the world in ancient times, where what is it called? It's called ocean, and
Oceanus.
It's just one. It's just one big river surrounding the world. Okay,
but it's that's like one image. I don't know if he's drawing on that exactly, but
the bright girdle.
The idea
furled.
of what the Greeks and what the Christians often would feel is that everything that they couldn't explain by science, for instance, was God. There goes God. In the forest is God. Around the ocean is God. Mount Olympus, there are gods. There's gods. People have faith in the order and everything that's happening. Order is a word that I'm bringing into this, but he says that's how it was once. The Sea of Faith was once at the full. So he, at the beginning of the poem, he talks about the sea is calm tonight. The tide is full. It's a full night. And it makes him think of, in the past, man was full of faith.
And then the fact that he had a big ocean surrounding the world is an example of how much faith was represented by the ocean.
Yeah, I think that's one way to think about it. Yeah, for sure. Like the idea that there's faith in imagine living in a time when you could, in your mind as a human, you might run into a nymph if you go into this forest, right? Like it's possible, right? It's in the realm. You believe that those things existed. You had faith that there was a God above.
So what you're talking about with the Sea of Faith is the ancient Greek idea of the kind of miraculous nature of nature, where everything can be a god or goddess, where you look at it and the ocean is Poseidon and that tree is some nymph or whatever it is, and it's kind of a beat to have the world be filled with gods and goddesses.
Well, you're girdled, right? You're which is a something you put around your waist. You're taken care of. So, like it holds your pants up literally, right? But it's also, it's like a blanket around you. It's comforting. And it's not, I would encourage you not to do just the Greeks. Think of what came after the Greeks, the Christians, and the power that comes from having a faith, I think is what he's trying to say.
The ocean is there's so much of it in the world. It's so vast. It surrounds all of us. A little bit like people have thought of faith surrounding us and comforting us, just as the vast ocean is around us and comforting us. But guess what, folks?
But
I don't
now,
hear that faith
yeah.
anymore. I hear melancholy.
But now I only hear its melancholy, long, withdrawing roar. Withdrawing. Like there was God who was yelling, like trying to get your attention, and he's withdrawing. Now he's going away.
Withdrawing roar. That's making me think of our prisoner, condemned prisoner.
Ooh. There you go.
It's finished with a roar. It's withdrawn now.
Yeah, retreating to the breath of the night wind, down the vast edges, dreary. It's drear, but it's dreary. Like vast edges, drear. So it's like the Kraken falling over the edge of the world, and what is happening in 1867, not 67, just in the late 19th century, that might give Matthew Arnold this feeling in the culture, by the way.
Oh, that? I don't know.
Well, like the rise of science and technology, which is replacing religion. I think he's making it kind of feel that we're not having religion.
But that's what I'm seeing especially is with this ignorant armies clash by night.
Okay.
So what's that in 1867?
So he does have an answer. This is a very, I think, melancholy mood he's in all of a sudden, right?
Sure. I mean, when he's saying there's no certitude nor peace nor help for pain and the waves.
Yeah. And because that's the realm of religion. That's the realm that you would get faith, that you would go to faith.
You're baptized
for
in the ocean.
certainty, for peace, for help, for the pain, for love, for light. That's all the realm of religion. And that's gone in this new world. He's saying it's gone. And he's had this is why I chose it for the topic, man's loss of faith, because I think he's responding to that emotion of what do we do now? If we don't have this certainty, so it's kind of like this contemplative mode. And he's like, okay, Sophocles had these, he felt the same type of thing. I'm not in the realm of Sophocles anymore. Now I'm in 1867. I'm in the modern world. And in this modern world, the only thing he can latch onto, and this last stanza, what are the first two lines, do you think? This is his answer, kind of.
Love, let us be true to one another, for the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. And we are here, as on a darkling plain swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night.
Which, by the way, that last line is definitely very famous, but that whole last three lines are very famous. But it's the only answer he has at the moment is that personal individual love for, in this case, I think this woman, but I think it's individual love. Let us be true to one another. That's the only thing he can think of that can replace and help burden or help deal with that there's no joy, no love, no light, no certitude, no peace, that the loss of faith, which has these consequences, I think he has this view that...
So this is a love poem?
Well, that's one way it's been taken.
The world is going to hell. There's nothing you can count on. It's all sadness.
And all we have is each other, baby. All we got is each other. It's me and you against the world. I think that's one way to think about it. That's how a lot of interpreters have done it. Yeah. I don't think that's the primary. I think what he's saying in this moment is like, I can't think of anything else. All we have is each other. Let's just hold on. I'm terrified. And that's the last three lines. And we are on a darkly, this is my feeling of it. Yeah. My interpretation. We are on a darkling plane. Darkling means darkening, right? The plane is getting darker.
Yeah. Just like the opening stanza. It's getting darker and darker out there.
Swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, right? Everyone's just freaking out. They don't know what's going on. They have no anchor anymore because they've lost their faith. Where ignorant armies clash by night, which is a kind of prediction of the future. And going up, to your World War I thing. So think about what it would mean to be an ignorant army clashing by night. Like there's no leaders. You're just kind of throwing stuff at each other. You're just like trying to kill whoever's next to you. You could be your best. It's just chaos. It's absolute pandemonium.
Or it's two armies that are really well regulated, but their leaders don't know why they're fighting.
Or that too. I think that's which, again, what happens like 40, 50 years later, right? Or I guess it'd be 60 years later or something like that. But yeah, you get World War I, and you get that kind of, that what feels like that kind of clash of ignorant armies.
I guess what it is that you're saying is that this fit into the broader culture of the late 19th century or the late 19th century. This has to do with more the kind of various social upheavals that are going on, which is causing humankind to start to lose faith in the comfort of nature.
Well, I would put it in faith, just faith in like a higher power, like in somebody who takes, I mean, the idea of having faith in a higher power, someone takes care of you. There's someone who has a plan for you.
So
Just like Sophocles
there's nobody that's got a plan for you.
Yes, you're on your own.
Then you gotta be with that true love of yours, who's gonna comfort you.
And
that's all you got.
So what I would say is, when looking at a poem, I don't always think that it's helpful to say that this is the definite meaning of it. This is his emotional experience of what he's feeling in this moment. And I think he's capturing, why this is so famous, is he's capturing a mood of what it feels like that.
So how would you describe the mood?
Well, man's loss of faith is the mood. Is it like the mood of, I no longer have something to hold on to in life.
So do you see this mood as being the same mood that the condemned man in the painting has?
Yeah, so if we're gonna, I think that's a good transition into this kind of finale of putting these pieces together. I think they may have some slight similarities, because you have more like your guy. The emotion is more anger, I think, right? He's angry at the injustice of it. This guy is more Matthew Arnold is more, who wrote this poem, is more despondent, and he's more despondent, I guess. Maybe I was shaded by that when I said he is more like, I don't know what to do. He's lost. He's much more lost, and like I don't know.
He's more reflective on it, right? This is not post rage. This is I've been experiencing this for a while, and honey, here's how it is.
Yes, and it's like, I don't know what to do. I'm I'm like a ship lost at sea at night. I don't have a North Star. I'm lost. And I think a lot of I mean, for me, I don't know about you, but I've definitely had times where I feel like what direction am I going in life? What direction is anything going? Right. This is why I think young people are so prone to like existential, disasters, and like the world is nothing, and nihilism, and it's like there's that mood
so
of,
Kirk,
I don't know where
I'm
things
wondering,
are going.
Is this, are you feeling that this is more about what direction am I going in life, or what direction is the world going in?
Well, he's contemplating on both. He's like, what's his place in
this
the
new world,
grander world of things, right? Like, because for me, that's what it is when you have. There is no experience of society having this experience, right? It's only me within society dealing with it, and each individual person, and society is just kind of the accumulation of all that. So he is feeling, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I don't know how to act.
I guess, Kirk, but I when comparing it to the painting, I see the man in the painting as having the more personal experience. Like, my life is screwed, and there's nothing I can do anymore now, and it's over. So I don't see this painting as saying "fuck it." I'm seeing this painting as saying,
it doesn't say "F it."
No, it
doesn't say that.
It's saying, what does it say? It's saying, I
guess
this is the way it is now.
By the way,
what?
I don't think it. I don't think it's right to say it's not personal.
No. I don't think so either. But I think the slant is more on a broader perspective, with a little bit more thoughtfulness going into it, rather than the condemned man who's saying, to hell with society, to hell with everything.
Yes. No, this is definitely a thinker who is, like a Sophocles.
Yeah.
Like Sophocles
yeah. And the fact that he's recalling Sophocles
is not a coincidence. Yeah. And he's bringing in, he's alluding, alluding, just a little term for people, alluding to this Sophocles character, I think, to bring in the kind of the how to answer this question of human life and man's place in life, which is what the great dramatist tried to explore. And he's suffering from the same type of questions, and he's trying to figure it out for himself, and he can't. And I do think it's a very, like, my personal feel of the tone is it's a very negative view. The only thing about love, like some people call it, like I said, a love poem. I don't think it's a love poem. I think that, me personally, a lot of people say it's a Victorian love poem, and this is Victorian love, right? Very negative, melancholy or whatever, and over the top. But my view is he's really experiencing this emotion of lost, and he's just holding on to the only thing that's there. And
All
like
right.
love is all we
Yeah.
got, baby. Right?
Yeah.
It's
So,
just you and me
okay.
against the world type.
So let me ask you this. Do you think the narrator of this poem would be out marching in the protests?
No. I don't, not at this moment. You know, maybe we could have a conversation about his character. Maybe he's the type of character who would think well and do something about that. But in the mood of this thing, I think it's more like, what's the use? It's just ignorant armies clashing at night.
Now, do you think that the character in the painting would go out into the
That's
protests?
a good question. Yes. Yeah. I think he would be out protesting. You know, just he would at least protest, like the anger that's there, whether you agree with the protest or not, just the feeling of anger that something's wrong. And I don't know what to do with it. I may not even have certainty or clarity on what to do, but I'm freaking mad. And this guy, Matthew Arnold, in this moment is not mad. He's more like the people who are sitting on the sidelines of the protest, like, what's the point? Like, what you're doing is nothing. You're just going to get beaten down, and then we're just going to go marching on and ignorant armies clashing at night. What's the point?
Cool.
So.
Very cool.
Okay. Any other last thoughts on the painting or the poem?
This is a wonderful poem, and I think when you personally connect to it, Kirk, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, when are the moments that I've been kind of like on the beach contemplating where the direction of my life, and you're bringing into it like not just your personal challenges, but society as a whole and the world as a whole, and whether or not you fit into this world. I think I can imagine situations like that, and I think a lot of people can.
Yeah, crisis of faith. I think this is that's how I'm going to sum it up. This is a crisis of faith for him, right?
All right.
Okay. So
well,
anything?
Kirk, this is great.
Okay, great. So I wanted to get into, before we leave, the topics for next time, everybody. So everybody,
right.
Thank you.
What's up for next time?
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. We have a couple topics that you guys get to vote on for next time, and the topics. So I'll read them off, and then we won't really talk about them. But go to there's a new Facebook group called Surprised by Art, and go there, and we'll give you the information that you need for voting and things like that on that Facebook group. And also, please share the video, or please share this audio. We're on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you can listen to podcasts. Help grow with what's that?
I love iTunes myself.
iTunes is great, Spotify, but it's on Google Podcast, pretty much everywhere you can listen to podcasts except SoundCloud, unfortunately.
Right.
So here are the topics. Huh? Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Alienation from human society.
Sounds kind of similar. I wonder how it would be different.
Okay. Mine is way different. My poem would be way different.
Oh, interesting.
Love of nature.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Plea for peace.
And
righteous defiance.
Okay.
And there may be some similarities in that.
Well, you know what? Out of those four, there's definitely one that I'm immediately drawn to.
Which one do you want to say?
Don't say. Absolutely. No, I'm going to say, because
okay.
I'm going to try to swing the vote my way.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So righteous defiance.
I like that. I
love scenes like that. So if you want to make me happy, vote for righteous defiance.
And I'm pro alienation from human society. That's my vote. But you guys choose what you want. If you want to choose plea for peace or love of nature, we can select great artworks for those topics. So thank you everybody for listening. And this is episode 1. Stay tuned for episode 2 coming up.